Without much ado, let's start our webinar, right? So the focus today is the age of Copilot, why it matters to the future of e-commerce, right? Before I go into the topic, let me introduce myself. I've been working in this industry for the last 18 to 20 years, right? Building world-class technologies like Hadoop at Yahoo, and then Answers, which went into a $1 billion acquisition, which I led. And then I was also building a lot of AI infrastructure at Nextdoor, building the teams there, especially understanding content, user understandings, right? And then I've been also a two-time founder myself, and I had successful exits before. So this is my third startup, which is primarily focusing on how to give the best experience that possible, like that in-person experience that we see. So if you go to a store, you have that experience, you have the confidence of buying, right? But online struggles something differently, right? You don't have the confidence other than if you're an Amazon or Walmart, very few sites that you feel very confident to buy. But if you go to some site which you don't know, you don't feel confident about buying that because you don't know whether your information is secure, whether you're getting what you want, whether in the product discovery phases to sales process, everything, and written policies, right, are extremely scary for people where they come to the site first and should I give my information, right? So there's a lot of questions there because of the fraud and all of that. How do we build the confidence? But in the process of building that in-person like shopping experience, but for online, right? So that's exactly the problem that we're solving. I'll certainly go ahead and demo a chatbot too, which is the essence of everything that we're doing. We call a CartUp, which is a Copilot for shopping Copilot. So before I go into demonstrating how we built, how we did it, all of that, so let's set up the agenda, right? I want to really talk about the deep learning and the Gen AI, how it evolved, right? And I was fortunate enough to involve in the early phases of this data to Gen AI where we are, right? And which I will talk a little bit about it. And then also I will touch upon the Copilot at CartUp, right? So we build this Copilot and the impact is huge, right? Our customers are seeing the revenue uplift of almost 40%, right? Using this Copilot. And I will give a demonstration of how it works. And then I will also focus a little bit of challenging in building Copilots. What did we learn, right? In case if you are building something close to Copilots, right? What is that exactly the challenges that you will face, and how would you overcome those? Given our experience, it will really help. And then we'll also deep dive into technology and innovations that we're doing at CartUp, especially while building this Copilot. There's so much has to be done. The OpenAI worlds and everything has done great, extremely tremendous job in putting the LLMs to the public. But at the same time, when you're building your own applications, Copilots or whatever on top of LLMs, it's not easy, right? You don't have the infrastructure that is required for running large language models, and you don't have money that OpenAI has, right? And how do you do that? How do you overcome that? Some of those learnings we learn, and especially if you're building startup, it's very, very essential to get those in right place, right? And then I will talk a little bit about ethical AI too, right? And it's very important as we build it, because ethical AI is what will help us define the next generation technology in a positive way, right? And if we don't do it in that sense, we will build a destructive AI, which will be very harmful for humankind, right? Which also I will talk about. So let's start with how the evolution of Gen AI happened, right? So this all started in 2000s, right? When the early web came in and people started, putting everything online, selling online, everything. And how do we gather this intelligence, right? So that's where the start of the business intelligence happened. The companies like IBM, Informaticas, right? They really build incredible software to understand the data, but they had problems. The problems primarily were due to capturing, they couldn't capture large data and they couldn't process large data, right? At that point in time at Yahoo, I was there and we were struggling to build anything credible, predictive analytics or understanding the users. And we started a project called Hadoop. And of course, you all know right now Hadoop is an open source and de facto standard for processing all of this, big data. And then we went ahead, built this, evangelized. I was a big part of evangelizing Hadoop across various platforms, and then really build an incredible, gathering of the data, understanding of the data, right? That was around 2008. It was very stable. It was open source. People started using it. Everybody wants to hop onto Hadoop and big data, right? And then that transitioned into predictive analytics. Now we do harness the data, but how do we do predictions on top of it, which is a very important part of this journey, right? And then by 2012, once we started, building models on top of it, I still remember those days where we were building a machine learning algorithm on top of vector support machines, regression algorithms, linear regression, nonlinear regression, all of that kind of stuff was happening. And that was good. That was a phase where in 2010s, we're starting predicting various things about what kind of advertisements we need to put to uh, person to click on it, right? The click probability analysis to what kind of content an user would be interested in. And that transitioned into real time, right? That's when Apache Spark came in, right? And that overtook a lot of, how to move Hadoop from offline to online. It is a very interesting transition that happened because people started realizing that now we're doing predictive analytics, but it is offline. How could you do in real time, right? Making sure that we put the right ads when it is required. And that's when there is more benefits of, clicking and converting, right? So that started, and that's really, the Databricks is a company that really evolved from that revolution of into real time, right? And that's great, right? All of us were very happy till then that we're doing real time, but there was something lacking, right? The something lacking was how to make machines to understand more effectively, right? And that's when we started to think about how to make sure that the algorithms that we are doing really not building by human intelligence, right? If you look into the predictive analytics of the past, there was so much of feature engineering was going. There was so much of, optimization was going in, and we're really not harnessing the power of the data. Though we're gathering in real time, there was very limited data set we were harnessing, right? Because of feature engineering. That's a big constraint that we faced at various companies as I was building my own companies and also the companies that I work, is that we're not able to harness the full power of the data and very much focus on few data sets, which really not a representation of the whole data set that we want to really capture, right? Or understand. That's when the deep learning came in. How do we make sure that our machines can be self-sufficient when we feed data, it understands itself, right? That's when the evolution really came in. And one of my first startups, Spark is basically on building machine learning and harnessing the full power of the data using deep learning. Of course, that was very early stages. I started in 2014. Of course, we sold that company to a publicly traded company, but at the same time, A lot of technology was coming in, the infrastructure was improving, and NVIDIA is where it is right now because of that revolution in the deep learning, right? And as we went into 2018, 29, there was a really nice paper that came out of Google. Is all you need is attention, right? That is the building block of today's generative AI, which is transformers, right? And I read that paper. I was so excited about that, right? And suddenly, I want to put money where I believe in, and we started Dragon Fruit at that point in time, basically understanding a lot of content, videos using the transformers, right? And that evolved into a generative AI that we see. And today we have OpenAI and other companies that really revolutionizing how we understand the data. But I want to get into how this works, right? In a very naive sense, all we do is feed all of this data uh, into into big models, right? And what it does is it takes all of this world projection of the language, right? You can get it from web, you can get it from the databases or wherever you can, from voice, whatever it is. And taking all of that, it all does is what is the next best word that I can predict based on the question that is asked, right? So I'm learning all of this language model. And then all you're doing is predicting that one word, and how fast you predict is what very interesting aspect, which we'll also talk about when we faced a lot of problems when we're building co-pilots and all of that kind of stuff. But really, it all comes down to how effectively and how fast you can predict the next word. That is the projection taken from the world, taking the question in the context, and from your understanding of this world projection, you predict the next word, right? And that could be answering your Q&A that you see in your chatbot, to whatever that you want to do it with the language model, right? And there is also the vision is also improving. It's not as a great or state of the art technology as LLMs, but certainly you have seen Sora that was released just recently by OpenAI, and it is done in a very similar fashion. But there's a process called diffusion, right? The diffusion is nothing but inducing some kind of noise into the pictures, right? So you take a dark picture, you induce noise, and that noise is what is a random distribution of data, right? But behind that, there is certainly a projection of the dark, right? So what you do is you denoise that, right? You take that noisy data, and then you start predicting towards that noisy data into the dark, right? So basically, what you're taking is all of this data that you have randomized and building a data distribution model that predicts your object, right? Whatever that object that you have noised, and you're trying to denoise it. So that's exactly it works. And of course, there's a prompt engineering that goes into it. But diffusions are the key building blocks of today's image models, right? From the DALIs to you see from the Sora, all of this are using big time diffusion models to build incredible image based on the prompts, or videos based on the prompts as well, that we recently saw with OpenAI. So one thing that I really believe is the generative AI impact, right? And people often tell that we will lose jobs, and some people predict that people won't lose jobs. But I'm in the other aisle of thinking, right? We will lose jobs, but at the same time, there's a new opportunities comes in. And the key thing is, how do we adapt to the new opportunities, right? And this is a really nice research from McKinsey that came out. So what is predicting is that there will be 2.6 trillion, 4.6 trillion annually across a myriad of use cases, from the healthcare to co-pilots to other industries like insurance, health policies, right? All of this will evolve in a big time, and this is the new economy that will develop. And the opportunities for all of us is in the new economy. And I certainly believe that the old economy is very well poised by the machines, take over the machines, because they exactly know how well we have done the job, and we feed into these machines, and now these machines can write your contracts. It could be a government contracts, it could be insurance contracts, it could be health contracts, or it can write you an email, or write you a marketing materials, or a bill marketing materials, right? So that information is already fed into the systems, right? And that is because of us being doing a great job in that. Now we're training that. So suddenly that process of job uh, will be gone, but new jobs will evolve. And but that is to be, I cannot predict it, not exactly, but I can certainly predict that there are certain industries that really will evolve, mostly in the robotics, understanding the space exploration. These are some of the very interesting areas. And of course, healthcare is a major big bottleneck, where understanding the DNA is a very critical part of it. These are various industries that will evolve in the process, and those are the where the jobs will be created. And I think that that is the future of our economy, right? And also, McKinsey told in the same report that 75% of the value that will be created of all the $4.2 trillion is mostly around the customer operations, marketing and sales, software and R&D, right? R&D is mostly, the robotics to space exploration, all of this new R&D that can be created out of understanding from the images, understanding from the text, right? And you have recently heard that OpenAI subsidiary organization also raised $1 billion to build humanoids, right? And NVIDIA and Microsoft has invested in those rounds. But certainly, I think robotics will be a very big part of it, and exciting to see how that will evolve and how fast it can be evolved too, right? Suddenly, robotics will evolve into great strides, but how fast is the question that we'll be asking. And the customer operations and marketing and sales is something, I think the jobs will be lost, certainly, right? And that's where everybody is doing right now a lot of innovations around co-pilots, writing contracts, those are the things. But also the software engineering is one big problem that we'll face for the coders, right? The coding that we do today is not how we will do in next 2 years. It will dramatically change in terms of testing, in terms of development, in terms of project planning. A lot of AI co-pilots will evolve, and you have seen that they're already evolved, especially GitHub Copilot, which cuts down almost 30% of your effort in building code. And those will get better day by day, right? Eventually, they will become as effective as 90%, and then number of people required for coding will be, far less than what we see today. But certainly, there's other opportunity will come in for software engineers, especially to the AI, robotics. That's where we need to go after. But very exciting phase that we will all witness in next 10 years. If I see the development of the humankind, right? It took industrial age for almost like centuries, right, to get to the industrial age. Industrial age to computer revolution probably took 50 years. From computer revolution to making artificial intelligence took almost 20 years, right, since 2000 to 2020s. And then in next 10 years, I'm predicting that there are a lot of automation, robotics, they will evolve into big strides, and the pace at which it evolved is a very interesting to witness. And also, Deloitte did a very good research. This is the I'm very excited about, is that most of the organizations will die if they don't adapt generative AI, right? So there is a survey that happened across CMOs and C-level, B-level executives that how you're adopting the technology, right? Around 74% are already testing. They're already using, 65% of that is using internally, and 31% is already deploying in to the outside world, right? In terms of co-pilots, in terms of understanding the content, writing contracts, those are the things that will be done automated fashion. And I think this is we're scratching the surface, and there's so much of automation will happen that a lot of the things will be get done faster and more effectively as well. But certainly there are some repercussions if we do not follow ethical AI, right? Which I will talk about at the end. So officially, we are in the age of co-pilots, right? And everywhere you will see co-pilots, right? That will help your users, your prospective customers, whatever it is, right? The co-pilots are in a big way deployed across every industries, from e-commerce, retail, to understanding your content, marketing materials, building collaterals. All of this co-pilots are pretty been big time used. But we are in the business of e-commerce, right? So our every day we come to our work and think about how do we make e-commerce a better place, give that experience that nobody has seen in the past, right? That in-person kind of an experience. And the problem that we're solving is very interesting. And I will give you a demo, which you will see it for yourself how it works and how effectively it works as well, right? They're all based on current chatbots. I want to differentiate between co-pilots and chatbots, because chatbots are the old way of thinking about it. And they are mostly a siloed functionality, deflection, and very manual intention, right? Most of the query is are hand queries. You need to define the rules and the graphs that how that transforms each rule to the traverse each rule to the other options and other text is incredibly painful, right? And we want to be an optionless, as close to human as possible in answering questions, not giving in options one, two, three, four, right? And that's exactly what it happens. And eventually that deflects to a person. And before it deflects to a person, it is almost 10 minutes. And customers are pissed off, right? And really, what our customers really need, and this is came out of our understanding and also the third party research, is that we interact almost millions of shoppers every day across the globe, right? And we are right now working with very large company in India where we are reaching almost 1 billion users through our software, right? And majority of the our software also is deployed in the Middle East, US, and Europe. We have millions of customers every day interacting with our software. Right? What we realize is that 80% of that really love the in-person like shopping experience. They really want that, right? When you go to Best Buy store or Walmart store or even the grocery store next to your house, mom and pop shops, you're confident buying. You know, if you have a questions, you can ask. If you have a problem in returning, you come to the store and return it, right? And that is a major problem that the merchants are facing. If you're not on Amazon and Walmart, right, you're not building the confidence for the people to buy, right? And if we can provide the in-person shopping experience, that was certainly a game changer, right? That can equalize to the Amazons and Walmart worlds of it, right? And I can tell you that we deployed our software on one of the Middle Eastern largest e-commerce company, and we have seen 40% increase in revenue, right? In days competing with Amazon. They were competing with Amazon, which is called Noon. And now they're seeing 40% within 3 weeks of deployment, right? Because this experience is very critical. And out of that, also, 75% want support beyond sales, right? It's not always ending with sales, right? We always have problems regarding our order management to after sales supports, like it is not working, can you help me set up? So these are big problems that we can solve through the generative AI. Today our software enables after sales supports, like if you want to understand written policies, can you written an item, or for example, if you want to set up a tent, you bought it, we bring all of this third party content and display, okay, you bought this product and you're struggling with setup, this is the video that will help you out, right? Those are the things that we can do with the beyond sale activity, which will reduce RMA, which is written merchandise authorization. One of the largest problem that customers are or merchants are facing today is that their profits are cut down by half just because of RMA, right? Returns that are sent, and most of the returns are not any kind of illegal activities. Mostly because we cannot support, the merchants are not able to support the returns aspects of it, are mostly related to unable to set up, unable to fix it, all of that. If we can do that, then we can increase the profits, right? And also 90% of the shoppers, our shoppers, when we understanding our shoppers from our data points, they really want to match to the needs and preferences, because each one has their own persona. And I will go into deep on how we do that as well. So in a nutshell, right, we empower shoppers to buy confidently of what they need, when they need, and beyond, and totally to in the journey, not only just in the process of discovery, but also beyond the sales, which I will demonstrate to you. And the way that we do, guys, is that first we understand the shopper, right? We collect almost hundreds of signals about the shopper in real time through our SDKs, right? That could be ranging from brand affinity, price, discount, upsell probabilities, all of that kind of things that we understand as they're doing it. Once they issue a query, that goes into our system and trying to match the right products that they need, right? And also guidance step, right? If you have, like, for example, bought an item and they want to know it's not working, you want to replace it, or you want to return it, we can help you out, right? Based on when they bought it, all of that understanding we do by connecting to their order management system and bringing data that is concise and very easy to consume for a shopper, right? And mostly, as I told, we are trying to become an optionless, right? If you today, give a call to, for example, to customer services in merchants today, they have 10 options, right? By the time they go in 10 options, it's already 5 minutes. You might have lost it. Again, you need to go back to the menu item. So these are the waste of time for the shoppers, and it really frustrates that, right? And that is one of the main reasons why most of the merchants cannot compete with Amazon. And we want to build that equalizer player, that everyone do have a technology that Amazon do have today. So we are mostly focusing on resolution and optionless, not a deflection that you see today. And we're an ultimate co-pilot. Again, I'm not going into not into salesy pitch, but I'm trying to build what we are building it, right, and how it will be really helpful, and give a demo about that as well, from product discovery to after sale, right? So now I want to give a little bit of demo, right, of how it works. So this is one of the largest customer that we deployed in Europe, right? Toy company, just like Toys R Us, right? I want to give a quick demo. Let me present a new window. Just a second. Can you guys see the? Okay, so this is one of the largest toys company in Europe, as I told. They're one of our customers, right? This is how it interacts. Again, there are some options, but we really want to get rid of these options because they prefer that a customer, but suddenly we're moving away from that, right? They don't have to configure anything. It's a zero configuration. If you are using intercom or anything, you have to do a lot of groundwork, right? So now let's ask some questions, right? Again, in the interest of time, I will do it really fast so I can do a product discovery here. So I'm asking, do you have any kind of PS5 products, right? So if you can see that we brought some PS5s from the store, and then I can say, oh, I want to place an order because I like the Slim Digital, right? So it goes into the order management system, it places the order, right? And now I want to ask if we do have any accessories around PS5s, right? So that I want to be interested in. It brings a lot of accessories as well, and precisely matching what you have added to the basket. And that's a very important following up, just like the humans do, right? If you go to Best Buy and buy TV or laptop, and if you ask accessories, they will exactly show the accessories that go with the product, right? And we exactly match them because of our deep learning capabilities that we have. So now I want to really narrow down into, I want like games 100, less than $100, right? Again, I saw that, oh man, I need this for my 9-year-olds. It doesn't look like for 9-year-old, right? And I want to do it for my kid who is 9-year-old, which is PG, right? And then it filters out because it already understands from the context that you're doing a gaming and you're asking to filter it out for 9-year-olds. So now all the games that it bought were for 9-year-old, right? So now I will say that, okay, let's add transformers, right, into one of the transformers that we have, right, Fortnite transformers. You don't have to even type the Fortnite transformer. We exactly know what products we placed. And even if you type just transformers, it knows that it has to pick from the Fortnite transformers. So then it asks into basket, right? Then you can say, I want to place an order, right? So now you can go and say, I want to place an order, right? And it knows exactly what you added in the basket. It places the order, it pulls up your address to confirm, and also tells you that you can expect in 5 to. So it asks for your confirmation. So once you do that, everything is great, handy, but you come back again, let's say after 1 hour, and you say, where is my order, right? Like you're asking about where is it located. Uh, we can exactly go to the order management system, get all the data, and use our natural language processing or LLMs to exactly phrase how to, build that answer. And then we'll say that we placed them but not delivered yet. Would you like any changes to the order, right? And I can go ahead and say that um, I want to order, right, Fortnite, um, transformers, the order by mistake, can you remove it, right? It removed it from the order, and it told that your price has decreased from 575 to 549, and you could expect to reach in 5 to 7 days, right? This is again a demonstration that I want to give it very quickly. Now I want to switch on to our talk webinar, but this is how really we're bringing the in-person shopping experience. Now I want to switch into how we built it, what are the challenges. If you are building some of this kind of technology, where you need to focus, right? So let's go into, again, our presentation window. Um, okay, so let's focus on some of the impact that we are having, right? We are seeing um, unprecedented power of generative AI, right? In every customer journey we're touching, right? And that is getting proven. The impact is proven today with millions of users every day, hundreds of millions of users are using. So what I can tell you from our data point is that, we're making every day more than 1 billion API calls to our systems, giving answers to various journey points from product discovery to after sales to before sales, written policies, returns, all of that are handled right now without any human intervention, right? The deflection rate has decreased by 95% today, right? 95%. So that means that we can cut the budgets of agents by almost 95% or more in some times, right? And that's a big saving to merchants, right? And that will create a bottom line profits, right? And that has resulted into 200 million plus recommended sales and cost savings for our margins, right? And we are increasing the basket size by 50% and order value by 1.5%, 1.5x, because we can bring accessories. They can ask questions about all of them. We can upsell, we can cross sell, we can put products that are really enticing based on the personalization. It's kind of thinking about generative AI and personalized merge together, right? So the demo is done, and I just want to tell you that the generative AI is a lot of promising, right? It will grow incredibly next 3 to 4 years in e-commerce at a 15% CAGR, right? And it will reach from anywhere between 5.1 billion to 16 billion by 2030. So that's a big growth that we're expecting to grow. Let's get into some technology points, right? So if you are building a chatbots, one of the key thing is you can't build using OpenAI, right? The SLAs are too slow. It might work for internal purposes, it might work for offline processes, but it will never work for real time. You have to build your own foundational models or train the foundation models, right? On top of open source models like Mistral, Llama. So the key thing for us is we have a specific uh, um, LLMs that are designed on top of Mistral and Llama too sometimes, and to take all of this data set, right? We train of the Mistrals and Llama models, right, in a federated way, and these are becoming our foundation models today, right? And of course, we cannot invest in building Mistrals or Llama because they're very expensive to build. I think Facebook has spent almost $50 million in releasing Llama 1, right? And I don't know how much they will spend on Llama, how much they have spent on Llama 2 and the new research, but it is very expensive. I mean, the GPUs might cost you $32 per hour or something like that, H100s, right? It's very expensive. The key thing is how do we take this existing models, right, foundation models, and build a foundation models on top of the foundation models, right? And that is optimized to the needs of your merchants, right? So one of the things that we have done differently from anybody else in the world is uh, each models are trained for specific to that merchants and specific to their shoppers, because that's a very critical, because each one of the shopper has a specific DNA, and that's a very critical in this process, right? And the other part is RAG, right? And if you don't know the RAG framework, I would really uh, uh, I really want to go in a very superficial manner, but certainly you want to learn about this if you're building any kind of inferences from the LLMs. The reason is your LLMs have specific knowledge to interpret some content and building the answer, right? But your context varies from one industry to the other industries, or one use case to the other use case, right? The key is to ability to send the context plus your question along with that, right? So that is exactly the RAG framework does. Your LLMs can write any answer, but if you give a context to it, it will write more appropriate answers, right? And this is called nothing but a RAG from augmentation generative framework, which is a pretty straightforward, which is really easy. All you do is take all your data, store in your vector database, When a question comes in, the question is matched to your vector database, pull the certain content that is related to it, which is a relevant data associated with your question, and then you can ask LLMs to say, how do I respond to this? For example, we do every day. For example, in the demo that I gave you, we showed a use case where we are asking order management, right? That where is my order? And the way we do is we go into the order systems and then bring the relevant data, which is a database JSON format or whatever it is, and then we feed into LLMs the question and the data around, and then tell how do we respond to this question, whether it is shipped, whether it is not shipped, whether it is stuck in shipping, all of that information that we have in our database, they're brought in, and then build a response on top of it based on the queries, right? So again, on top, to make it very simplified, I think the key component is the data ingestion in real time that we're talking about as we're building our real-time analysis of the user intent. The second part is the training and inference, which is very, very important, as which I talked about, these LLMs and all of that, building that real-time inferences and offline inferences are very important. And third part is context, right? The context is basically understanding the real time, what your intent is, what are the right products we need to surface, or what is your questions about order policies, and then going into the right databases, getting all of that information and feeding into LLMs and getting into the answers, right? So that's exactly how this all works, right? Now I want to get into a little bit of ethical AI, which is very, very important as we're building the right generative AI for humankind, not the wrong generative AI. So the key thing is around how do we build the software in the right way that can take the humankind to the next level, not to the past, drag into the past, right? Become a useless part of the society. We don't want to be useless part of the society. We want to be especially the generative AI or anything that is intelligent system, augment us in every form or shape, right? So the top concerns today we see is the data piracy, right? And this came out of Deloitte research. We need to build a software that really empowers human beings, right? Whoever writing this content has to be given credit, right? And which is not done today. And you know that New York Times has sued OpenAI for $2 billion. It will go into trial in next 1 month or so, if I'm correct. Transparency is one of the big problems, right? Intellectual property, copyright, the data hallucinations to get better answers from the system, because every time it writes very crisply, you think it's right? So I can ask OpenAI how to build an atom bomb, it will write it, but most of the times it is not. If you're a scientist, you can make sense that it is very well written, but it is not it suffers from answering the right way, right? But it writes very well that you think, oh, this is like written so well that I should believe it. And that's a big problem, especially when the misinformation goes in, especially in the era of our political divides and whatnot, right? So it's very important that we put the right information. The data hallucination has to be taken very seriously, otherwise the misinformation can be propagated. And then the generative AI around the vision can mock from the deep fakes, all of that are a very, very big part for us to solve. But I think the key thing is how do we evolve into all of this really fast, right? And building the right software. And the great power comes with the great responsibilities. And the key thing is the way that we think as a company is, how it is reliable and secure, right? How it is accountable and govern every part of the intelligence that we build. And then the third part is are we building a fair and human-centered, right? And it can struggle. And if you are becoming too much of, leaning towards one or the other, you will have the effects of Gemini, right? Which Google had, unfortunately, because they trained models very, in terms of thinking differently about the problem rather than a fair way, right? Now, if you're asking something, it will mostly incline to give minority based, right? Because if you become a majority based, then that's a problem. If you become minority based, right, then that's also a problem, right? And interestingly, George Washington photos were depicted in black, right, which is not right, right? But they took an approach that is not right as well, which has to be fair and human centered, right? That's the key thing. And then the last one is transparent, explainable. Everything that we do needs to be explainable, right? Why Google did what it did, in Gemini image creation, that needs to be explained. If you cannot explain, you cannot fix it, right? Or you cannot really confidently tell why you arrived at the solution. And a lot of the human reasoning or human solutions we have built is based on the transparency and explainability. Why I have taken the decision? Because when you go to the courts, laws, you have to explain certain things of why that certain aspect has behaved in a way that it has to be, right? And unfortunately, that is not happening today with deep learning. That's more challenging, and we call this RAP framework, right? And we take this ethical process really, really seriously in building the right software that really helps the humankind to take the next level, and build an incredible software that really helps our shoppers throughout the journey, right? With that said, I will stop here. I want to thank you for all of you. Now I will open up for questions. Unfortunately, we had initial issues around this webinar starting, but I will leave around some questions. Any questions, guys? Okay, so David from Boston asked, what are some of the emerging trends that are expected to further shape the evolution of generative AI in coming years, right? Um, so certainly, I think a lot of the interesting problems that we always thought not be possible are possible. One of them is the healthcare. Um, and I believe that we will certainly solve the problem of immortality. That means that I'm not telling we will live thousands of years, but at least in near future, in 50 years, we will understand our genetics, right? In a way that we never understood. And what that results into is freezing the DNA degradation, right? As we become old and old, the DNA is the main part in this protein synthesis, right? Where everything, our body is a protein synthesis, right? Our heart functions certain way because the proteins are created, the DNA in the heart cells create a protein that functions certain way, right? Our liver, same thing. Our muscle, same way, right? But as we grow old, I think these becomes very degenerate. The DNA cannot generate the protein synthesis doing that. So that's exactly a problem that we will face, right? If we can freeze that, let's say we freeze at the degeneration or slowly degenerate, then we can live hundreds of years, right? There's no reason why we can't live hundreds of years if we freeze our DNA, right? Or slow our degradation process when we go from young age to middle age to old ages, right? From old ages, it goes exponentially down. So that's one of the big use cases that will evolve. The healthcare is major thing. And other part that I'm really interested is in space, right? I have a big affinity towards space, quantum mechanics, which we don't understand at this point in time. But the key thing for us is how do we understand the nature of the this world, right? The universe, right? The quantum nature and the big nature of the world, the universe, right? From the gravitational force, all of that are the effects that we do, but how that relates to quantum nature, which we don't understand, because quantum nature works in a probabilistic manner, right? If you look into Schrodinger equations, the famous cat experiment, right? They're all probabilistic models, right? And you cannot predict the position of an electron when you throw an electron out, right? It is a probability that it will end up, or it is a superposition that it could be existing here and here as well. And that really contradicts the general theory of relativity. But the key thing is, if we can come up with an understanding of how this works, the quantum mechanics will really evolve into a space where we will have the computing power that nobody has imagined, right? Because of the superposition, we can do 2 to the power of 64 or any n number of, the superposition things into parallel computations, right? Especially that will help in drug discoveries, molecular buildings, right? Those are the key things that we will understand, and also space exploration. These are kind of things that will evolve in a big way. Other than everything that we're doing very nicely with contract writings to whatnot, right? These are the simple problems for generative AI. I think that will be get done, right? From Sweden, how do co-pilots changes from Sweden? So how do co-pilots personalize interaction, and what are the advantages it has on the rule base? Very good question. So the problem with today's chatbot, which I talked about, they are very rule based, right? Before you build this rule based, somebody, some analyst has to come through and build a graph of option after options and how they traverse through options, and you will never know which option has triggered and which option has not triggered. And that's like thousands of nodes, right, of options, and how to respond to these questions, right? And that's not the way you do design everything, right? That's how humans never work. Human works based on the context, and that's where the generative AI will come in, where we'll take over this rule based and interact more on the context based, and understand where we need to pick the information in the right way. If it's order management, or should I go to product information files to get the products that the customer wants. These are the things that are very important in the next generation co-pilots, which are totally different from chatbots that we do see. Um, so thank you, Vidya. I think awesome to learn, Arvind. Thanks a lot, Vidya, for good words. Um, Ian, thank you for session. Very thanks a lot for coming, Ian, as well. Rahul, very informative. Thank you very much, Rahul. And from John, says that what are some of the limitations of AI co-pilots? Right, very good question. Still evolving. There's a lot of limitations in the co-pilot, and the key thing is they're not multimodal, right? What does that mean, right? It can understand context well, but it cannot reason. It cannot do a multi-modal tasks, right? And that's where humans will come in and develop the co-pilots more like a multi-modal, where they plug in various tools. We call mathematics tools, for example, to calculate total order value. We direct that to mathematic models and all of that kind of stuff. Tools we call, right? And for example, if we have to capture information from the external YouTube or something like that, we redirect to some of those. So it's very, very right now, there is a generic understanding, but it is not a multi-model. We need to make a decision based on some of the key routing aspects, and then route to the right tools that we need to build. And if we move away from that, and even that part even chat GPT can do, that means that we are achieving towards general intelligence, right? And that's like a game changer again. That's the next level for chatbots. Rahul, right? Do you have a sense of what is driving user to favor the Copilot shopping experience over the traditional search and browsing behavior? Very, very good question. So, Rahul, I think we do talk with or we interact to our shoppers through our software. Millions of shoppers, right, across the world, Middle East, Asia, India, US, Europe, right? And one thing that we learned is through experimentation, right? everybody can predict anything, right? Prediction is cheap, right? But proving to be right is the most important aspect. And the way we take is always our data should speak about it, right? So when we put software, we do analyze how they're interacting based on the browsing, and some of like 50% we don't even show the copilot. We show browsing experience and traditional search experience, right? And then we do show copilot for 50%, right? And then we can easily measure the people who are interacting with copilots, how their behavior, how they are interacting more effectively, how they're asking more effectively, which is fun, which is more interactive, which is fast, which is get to what they want to in really less time, and needless browsing, cutting all this needless browsing, right? For example, one of the top use cases that we're seeing is for moments, right? For example, you're going to Lake Tahoe with two of your kids and you have to buy 10 products, right? How do you do that? 10 products is you have 10 cat poles, shoes, tents, food, games, right? All of that you have to remember, right? You don't have to in our case. You can simply say, I want to go to Lake Tahoe to camp out with two of my kids for 2 nights, recommend. So it understands the weather from the external source, whether you need to buy cold clothes or and then what kind of camping materials, what kind of board games. If you have 2 years old kid, or sorry, two kids who are like young, all of that can be analyzed through our co-pilots, right? And that is really stopping an need for endless browsing that people are doing. So in a nutshell, Rahul, it's all data speaks. So when we do a POC, we clearly tell the mandate, we 50% do whatever you're doing, 50% co-pilots, and you see that what is the effect that we're bringing, right? Today we're seeing every month $200 million plus we're influencing across our merchants, which is going to go up to billions of dollars in next year or so, right? That's what our projections are. And from data privacy concerns from India, factor into development evolution of generative AI, right? So it's a big part, right? Data privacy is a big thing. One of the big thing is that as we talk to co-pilots, how do we anonymize information, right? As we're collecting all of this information, it's a big part of it. The generative AI don't have the understanding of privacy at this point in time, so they cannot anonymize the data on other things. So we anonymize in our databases as we're getting signals, and that's a critical part of the journey for. As again, this is one of the things that somebody asked, like how this evolve, is that we will build privacy modules into into LLMs, right? And we don't have to explicitly do that anonymization going forward. I think that's also a very good approach that will come in next few iterations, where suddenly anonymization will be a factor of understanding what is SSN, what are date of births, what are the names, how do I interacting with shopper, should I give that information back to them? These are critical things that as we feed into LLMs, it will really understand what information to be put and what information has to be redacted, right? Shekhar, been on a very informative indeed. Okay, thanks a lot, Shekhar. Jessica from New York, could you elaborate the process of training co-pilots, right? Again, as I told, co-pilots, we take a different approach. We don't depend on OpenAI. We are depend mostly on this foundational models that we build on top of Mistral's and Llama models. And also specifically trained for each and every merchant site, right? Because each one has a specific DNA of the users they come in, the products they're selling. For example, we have customers who are selling shoes to old people versus we have customers who are selling shoes to young people. Entirely the dynamics are different. And the products that we need to bring are also very different to old people versus younger people, right? So that's, I think, I ran through all the questions. Rahul, great insights, data insights. Thank you. So thank you, Rahul, for joining this call. Any last minute question, guys? Okay. Thanks, guys. Hey, Ian, yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Arvin. Thank you for the presentation. I just want to ask about AI and compliance in terms of cybersecurity part for this e-commerce part that um, you can share with us for the future.
Yeah, really good question. So if you saw my previous slide, right? I can go into previous slides. Um, One of the big problem is compliance, right? Especially in the um, industry of healthcare, insurance, right? There are some regulatory industries where compliance are really important, right? And we do um, we don't the LLMs today don't have a big understanding about the compliance, right? And the people are taking various numerous approaches of how did they train the LLMs, right, to have more compliance and all of that. I know that a lot of startups are using PPOs, right, policy gradient optimization models that they feed into LLMs, right? Today they take all these foundation models like Mr. Llama, and then they put a top layer which is called PPO layer, which is mostly training towards the compliances, right? And how do you structure a law agreement? How do you structure an insurance policy? How do you structure a healthcare policy, right? Whatever it is, right? Whenever you are getting into contracts, right? So they're addressed to the PPOs, but that is one thing that has to evolve still, Ian, right? It is still in the process of evolution. But I think something that I'm very interested. That is not the problem that we are solving, unfortunately, because compliance is not a very big problem for in the e-commerce industry, unlike healthcare or industrial contracts, right? But I would certainly keep an eye on how that will evolve. Ian, very good question. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys, and nice to see you guys. And have a good one.